بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله وحده والصلاة والسلام على من لا نبي بعده. Dear respected viewers, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to another brand new episode of Ask Eman, broadcasted live from the studio of Eman Channel on Sky 757. This is a live interactive Q&A program, and if you have got any question, then please feel free to pick up the phone and dial 0203 515 0757. Alternatively, you can drop us a text on WhatsApp on 079 1684 1483. I'm your host, Qamarul, and joining us tonight is none other than Fadilatul Shaykh Shaqur Rehman. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
First of all, Shaykh, thank you very much for giving us your valuable time, and welcome to Ask Eman.
Jazakallah khair. May Allah accept it from all of us and make it beneficial for everyone, inshallah.
Thank you. Jazakallah khair. My dear viewers, I'd like to remind you we are also live on our social media platforms, so please don't hesitate to like, share, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Facebook and Instagram page, and follow us on our Twitter handle. And we're also live on our website, emanchannel.tv. Today, exactly 1 year anniversary has been commemorated everywhere since the lockdown has begun last year in 2020. We have seen on the mainstream media the discussion that has taken place with regards to financial loss, economical loss, educational loss, and most importantly, emotional loss. Inshallah, tonight I'll touch briefly from an Islamic perspective as a Muslim. How do we reflect, or how should we reflect the year 2020 that has passed? What lessons do we learn? And how can we make our life different from last year? Inshallah, that will be my first question to Shaykh, and then we'll start taking your questions. Shaykh, please.
Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah amma ba'd. Allah told us about this life, and He didn't paint a rosy picture for us and tell us it's going to be a fairy tale and we're going to be living in this dunya, relaxing, enjoying ourselves. No, He didn't create this life for that. Rather, He said, as we all know, الَّذِي خَلَقَ الْمَوْتَ وَالْحَيَاةَ لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا. That He only created death and life for one thing, to test us, which of us is best in action. So that's the purpose of this life. So whatever challenges that we face in this world, we have the opportunity, okay? There are challenges, and with every challenge, there's an opportunity. Opportunity for what? An opportunity to raise in our rank and our closeness to Allah. So whether it is in our normal day-to-day life that we were living before lockdowns and before Corona and before everything else, we had those opportunities. Were we going to choose to submit to Allah and work righteousness and increase and strive? Or were we going to be from those people who neglect Allah, neglect the rights of Allah upon us, the rights that Allah has given to others upon us? How are we going to behave? So this was the test, and nothing's changed. In that respect, for the Muslim, nothing's changed. Whether you are imprisoned or whether you are free to roam the earth, the test is still the test. Now, it's not as nice to be confined and not be able to interact with our families, our loved ones, our friends, even going out to work. For many people, that in itself, that movement and that normal routine was so beneficial. But the Muslim, however, it's not these worldly things and these routines that is the center of their life. Rather, it is as the Prophet ﷺ, he said, "Man kanat al-akhirah hammahu, ja'ala Allahu ghinahu fi qalbih." That the person who makes his main concern in his world, the akhirah, then Allah puts contentment in his heart. And then, وَجَمَعَ لَهُ شَمْلَهُ, and He looks after all of his affairs. And وَأَتَتْهُ الدُّنْيَا وَهِيَ رَاغِمَةٌ, and all the good of the dunya comes to him even though he doesn't chase it. So Allah wants the focus of our lives to be the akhirah. And if our focus was the akhirah before the lockdown and during the lockdown, and is the focus after the lockdown, then we are always on top of the world. Not because of our own powers and ability, but rather, وَجَمَعَ لَهُ شَمْلَهُ, because Allah is always taking care of us. Now, if you have Allah on your side, and Allah is looking after you, then you have nothing to worry about. You are always optimistic about the future. You are always happy with what Allah has given you. You are the grateful slave to Allah. And that gives you a contentment in the heart that cannot be paralleled. And then, on top of that, the third thing that was mentioned in the hadith by the Prophet ﷺ, you get the best of this world. So the Muslim, the believer, never loses. Either he's in a state of patience because of a calamity, or he is in a state of gratitude and thankfulness because of the blessings. And, you know, many of us, even yesterday I was reflecting on this point that, you know, it's so much nicer to be able to work from home and still be able to pick up the kids, and it's easier now, and I save 1.5 to 2 hours a day, and I can make use of that in other ways with the family and doing other chores and my self-development as well. So I was reflecting on this just yesterday. The thought came to me, and in the lockdown we know there's many blessings that people have found. Yes, there's trials, but that's with everything in life.
Now, the other thing I'd like to touch briefly, because we've got a lot of questions to get to. This lockdown, one thing I have noticed, we always had a statement, we're a human being, we have absolute freedom, we can do whatever we want, it's our way of life. And we realized in lockdown, or since the pandemic began, that no, that is not the case. We do not have the freedom to do whatever we want, whenever we want. Is that not a lesson for us to learn?
Of course, mashallah, this is a very good point. Now, we were roaming the earth and doing whatever we liked, and we felt that we were the superpower in
we
the
had
world.
The absolute control of everything.
Yeah, we thought you push this button and you get this, and then
Yes.
I can do this and I get this, and we forgot. And we lived like the rest of, unfortunately, the world. We forgot about Allah, really we did. And the lesson, the greatest lesson to take away from this lockdown and everything to do with the pandemic is, quite simply, وَاللَّهُ غَالِبٌ عَلَىٰ أَمْرِهِ وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَ النَّاسِ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. Allah is uppermost, superior. He has full control of everything, but most people don't understand. And then it takes something big to wake us up and understand that, there's only one superpower. There's only one who controls everything. And He controls with wisdom and mercy and overlooks and forgives and is ready to accept you. That is Allah. That is our Lord that we worship.
Thank you very much for that. Now, moving on from there, we have seen the other angle from a Muslim perspective, that if we do not take medication or if we do not take vaccine, as if like the impression is, I won't survive. Now, there is a question often that crosses the mind. So are we relying on medication or medicine, or are we relying on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or how do we balance between the both?
Okay, this is very important. Whatever medicine you take, it is not the medicine itself that can cure you or protect you or anything. This is our belief as Muslims. That power is only with Allah. And Allah is the one who allows that medicine to take effect. He told us to take it, but we have to rely first and foremost on Allah. Then after that we take the medicine, which is a means. It doesn't mean that means is going to work for me or is going to work for everybody. No, Allah will choose who He allows it to work for and who He doesn't, because that is Allah's choice. As Ibrahim alayhi salam, he says in Surah Al-Shu'ara, he says, وَإِذَا مَرِضْتُ فَهُوَ يَشْفِينَ. When I become ill, it is only Allah who cures me. It's not the medicine that I took and the actions that I took. It's not that cures me. Not saying that we shouldn't take medicine. The Prophet ﷺ advised us, take medicine, take certain things. But before all of that, our yaqeen is in Allah. If Allah has decreed for this medicine to work, it will work. Now, many of us, during this pandemic, we have fallen into this trap of thinking, it's the face mask that's going to save me, it's the sanitization of my hands and all of this that's going to save me, and staying away from everyone that's going to save me, and the vaccine that's going to save. No, it's not that. It is first and foremost Allah's protection, Allah's will, Allah's decree. Then after all of this, Allah has advised us, take reasonable means.
Precautions.
Yep. And that's it. But forgetting where we come from, our Islam, forgetting that belief and not acting in accordance to that belief, that is a greater musibah, greater calamity for the believer than to pass away because of the pandemic itself.
And as Sheikh has mentioned, precaution is definitely very, very important. However, our trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala must be the first thing. And when it comes to medications or vaccine or anything with regards to medical treatment, of course, Islam tells us, and our guests on numerous occasions have advised that seek medical advice, but at the same time have trust and firm belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if there is any requirement for us to seek medical advices, then we should not delay and we should seek advice from the professional experts. Now, Sheikh, moving on swiftly, I would like to talk about this topic more, but because we've got very limited time and we're in the month of Sha'ban, and soon we'll be approaching 15th of Sha'ban. Unfortunately, again, like every year, I've seen the debate already started on social media, various social media platforms. Now, kindly, if you can give us a broader understanding briefly about the 15th of Sha'ban, and most importantly, how can we make sure we're united, whatever opinion we follow. Importantly, we should also follow the correct sunnah, but at the same time, be united with our ummah.
Okay, the 15th of Sha'ban is an easy issue now. I think people used to fight about it a lot more, and generally on the ground, things are a lot calmer now about the 15th of Sha'ban.
Alhamdulillah.
It's understood that there is something special, virtuous about the night because of so many ahadith pointing to that. So as the scholars of hadith mention, that there is something special about it. What exactly it is uncertain, unclear, but the amount of narrations about it bring that special attribute of that night to a position of authenticity. Okay, so there is something special. Now, as for preferred practices or specific practices on that night,
or congregational practices.
Yeah, whether it's congregational or otherwise, there's nothing prescribed specifically to do on that night.
Okay.
Rather, the Prophet ﷺ has prescribed for us in every single time or night specifically of our lives that the last third of the night is the best part of every night. It's when Allah descends to the lowest heaven and He asks, who's calling on me so I can respond to him, who's seeking my forgiveness so I can forgive him, who is there that's asking that I can give. Okay, so that is the time in every night that we should be imploring Allah. We should try to pray tahajjud, even if it's one rak'ah of our witr or whatever it is. Time of dua, time of istighfar. So out of every night, the best of every night is the last third. So if one were to strive in worship in the last third in any night, it is virtuous. Let alone a night that is more virtuous or has a special virtue in it. Okay? And on top of that, Quran, reading Quran, making dua, because some of our sisters, we know that they won't be able to pray on that night because they will be on their time of the month. So doing these actions, even any other righteous action, like giving sadaqah, like helping someone in need, whatever you want to do, do your own personal actions. As for congregating in the masajid, I don't think now anyone can go to the masajid anyway because they're locked anyway. So
controlled. Obviously, the masajids are open but controlled.
Yeah, they're locked at those times, aren't they?
That's correct.
During the night.
That's correct.
So, and most of the masajid, they're open just before the salah and close straight after the salah.
Correct.
So it's very much managed like that. So I don't think anything's going to be happening in the masajid anyway. But this is not something that was known from our ummah to do or prescribed practice from the Prophet ﷺ.
Quick word of advice to those, especially keyboard warriors, who think that they are always on haqq and everyone else is on batil, and very quick to give advice about bid'ah, innovation, shirk, munafiq, and all of those labels. Quick advice, how should they best possibly engage, if they had to engage, on those kind of conversation on public social media platforms?
I don't want to attack anyone like that, and rather, the Muslim is the one who wants good for every other Muslim. Yeah, as the Prophet ﷺ, he said, "Man istata'a yanfa akhahu falyaf'al." Whoever can benefit his brother, then let him do so. Wallahu fi auni al-abdi ma kana al-abdu fi auni akhi. and Allah is in the aid of His slave as long as His slave is in the aid of his brother. So let's use whatever abilities and blessings that Allah has given us to promote righteousness. Now, let's do it with good manners, because the Prophet ﷺ said, وَخَالِقِ النَّاسَ بِخُلُقٍ حَسَنٍ, and be with people and interact with people with good manners. So if you have a certain view and you want to convey that view, fine, but do it with good manners. Let's not attack each other as we approach Ramadan. Let's bring about good feelings between us and the rest of the ummah, whoever they are, whether they agree with us or disagree. Yeah, clarify what you believe to be a stronger position, whatever it is, but also acknowledge, okay, if someone doesn't want to listen and you've conveyed your words, khalas, leave them to it. Take it easy. Be nice.
Make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Make dua to Allah that Allah guides us and guides them and guides everyone to that which is best.
Thank you.
To follow righteousness.
Thank you very much for that. And yes, there's nothing wrong with the word keyboard warrior. However, we have to ensure that our energy is focused on the right things for the right cause. And as Shaykh has mentioned, with clear and good guidance and adab. Because sometime when we start engaging in certain conversation, we'll have to also look into the aspect, will it be a greater benefit to the wider public? And especially, let's ponder, if a non-Muslim watches those kind of discussion and the language, how would they react? What would they think? Are we representing ourselves in the best form, in the best manner? So inshallah, let's take a note, and as Shaykh has advised, let's follow the advice given by the Quran and Sunnah. Now, you've mentioned about the masajid being open and closed, and of course now, alhamdulillah, the masajid are still open. Ramadan is approaching, as you've also mentioned in your conversation. Now, as far as we know, the government does not have any plans in place to close any places of worship. So based on that today, we're assuming the masajid and all the other places of worship will be open. So in particular, the masajid, hopefully in Ramadan this year, will be open, but of course in a controlled manner. Now, my question is, if we follow all the guidance laid down by the government and we are following everything, whatever that has been asked by the committee or the masjid management, after that, now we have seen till now, Ramadan is not too far away. The discussion have already started about 8 rakat or 20 rakat, especially by those masajid that normally conducts 20 rakat, but they're using the explanation or they're giving the explanation that because it's pandemic, even though they're following all the other rules and regulations that has been laid by the government, but still they're thinking that we want to do 8. And then the question comes in whether we're going to complete the Quran. But we have seen in the past, those masajids have always completed the Quran during the whole month of Ramadan, but this year they're trying to take exception, or there is difference of opinion between the committee and the community. How can we balance this?
Okay, this is an important issue as we approach Ramadan. Now, Ramadan, as we all know, and there's no difference, we all agree, Ramadan is the month of Quran. Yeah, Shahrul Quran. It is the month that we should strive most in our ibadah. Now, as we know, most people, they can't read the whole Quran in Taraweeh if they don't pray in the masjid. That's the reality that we live. Now, I'm not really interested whether people pray 8 or 20 on the masajid, make their own choices, no problem, okay? And 20 normally makes it easier to pray and read the whole Quran. So there's no issue in that. So we shouldn't make it a big issue whether people pray 8 or 20 in the first place. What is an issue, though, is that, right, our masajid are following the guidelines for the safety of the community, probably better than most, if not all others. Now, when you have an imam facing forward, the congregation behind him, and everyone's wearing their masks, and everyone's social distancing as well, and the imam is the only one who is reciting, and he's reciting forward and everyone else is behind him, and in front of him is a wall. Okay, there's very little chance of anything spreading. Okay, and it's not like other places of worship where there's singing involved and people are close together perhaps, or everyone is raising their voices, etc. So it's not like that either. So it's very safe. Our ibadah is very safe from causing the pandemic to increase and more problems with the pandemic. It's very safe. Now, what I urge the masajid to do is not take away from our ummah, our communities, the opportunity to pray to Allah in this blessed month of Ramadan with reciting and listening to the whole of the Quran. Now, this should be something that our committees, I would advise them not to be so fearful as we're coming out of the lockdown and things are easing as well, and things are getting better, and the hospital situations are much better than they were. When everything is going in the positive, we shouldn't then say, you know what, we need to make it easy and worship Allah less in Ramadan, because at the end of the day, our committee members should understand that if you take these positions, you are actually decreasing, in reality, you are decreasing how much Allah will be worshipped in the month of worship, Ramadan. That will be the net effect, and you will be the cause of it. Now, we don't want to stand up in front of Allah Yawm al-Qiyamah and we be the cause that, oh Allah, you weren't worshipped as much as you should have, as much as you would normally be worshipped in Ramadan because of me and my decision. No, let's refer that decision to the ulama, which unfortunately in many cases is not happening with the committees of the masajid. And those masajid that are doing that, good, may Allah reward you all. Take advice from institutions of jurisprudence when coming to these assessments. Taraweeh for 1 hour or 1.5 hours with the imam standing at the front reciting like this is not going to cause further spread of the pandemic. It's not going to happen. It's unrealistic. As long as we maintain, like we do at Jumu'ah, people coming in, going out, social distancing, etc., everything will be taken care of. And remember, the doors of paradise are flung open. The doors of the hellfire are shut closed. The shayateen are locked up. In this kind of environment, have trust in Allah with taking the means, and everything will be good. But don't decrease the worship of Allah.
Thank you very much for that. And I'd like to echo what Shaykh has mentioned. Alhamdulillah, our places of worship, our masajid are one of the most safest place. And as Shaykh has mentioned, that yes, all the masajid, alhamdulillah, we have seen that they're taking all the necessary precautions. They are guiding the community to take all the necessary precautions. They're ensuring that they're not only following the government rules and guidance, but also complying with the local restrictions or local guidance as well. As an individual, it is also our responsibility to ensure that if we are showing any symptoms of coronavirus, then we need to make sure we abstain, we make sure we isolate ourselves, we make sure that we follow the medical guidance, and we take appropriate actions. Now, Sheikh, before I move on to our questions on WhatsApp, I'd like to also remind our viewers, if you've got any questions on those kind of matters or any matters in general as Ramadan is approaching, then please feel free to pick up the phone and dial 0203 515 0757. Alternatively, you can drop us a WhatsApp text on 0791 684 1483. Now, Sheikh, one final thought from you, because you mentioned about the Masjid Management Committee. A lot of time we hear allegations or accusations that a lot of the masajids or masjids committee members are making decisions on behalf of the community when they themselves do not attend masjid regularly. Your advice?
We don't want to create animosity between the musallis and committee members. At the same time, one of the committee members in one of the meetings when the first lockdown happened, he made this really, really good point. And he said, as committee members, we are there to serve our communities. So as with any position of authority, we need to remember we are there to serve those people in our communities that fall under that authority that Allah has given us and put us in that place to facilitate. So that's how we should view it. So we should involve our communities, the jama'ah that pray there regularly in these types of decisions. Because if we don't, then we're going to create more animosity between the congregation and the committee members, and then we're going to have the situations like we have. There's hatred and there's rancor and there's enmity between Muslims. How can we go into Ramadan in a state where we create this animosity in this atmosphere that these people, they're doing this without our consent, they don't care about us, and we just want to worship Allah? We don't want this kind of situation. So let us involve the congregation, if not all the congregation, those who are regularly attend, we should involve them. We should hear their voice. We should let them have their say. We should see our committees listening to them, listening to their voices, because in that it resolves this kind of animosity that is left in the hearts. And even if we take a decision that is slightly different and we have this kind of approach of listening and allowing people to speak and allowing people to be heard, it actually gets rid of this ill feeling. Okay, and then if we come to decisions together, Allah will bless those decisions more so.
Thank you very much. And these discussions are questions that you send us, and we have discussed it on our program. However, we also need to make sure that we say, Alhamdulillah, the masajids and the masjid committee members, a lot of them are doing a lot of khair. They are looking up to the community, they are listening to the community, and they are involving them into their decision making. But these decisions are there for us to not only educate ourselves, but also perhaps through our guests, if they can give and share their lights and thoughts, inshallah, we understand that it will benefit the wider Muslim community. Inshallah, it's time for a short break, and after we come back from the break, we'll start taking your WhatsApp question. You're watching Ask Eman live on Eman Channel. Thank you very much. Welcome back. You're watching Ask Eman live on Eman Channel on Sky 757. We're also live on our social media platforms, so please don't forget to like, share, comment and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Instagram and Facebook page, and follow our Twitter handle. We're also live on our website, emanchannel.tv. I'm in conversation with Fadilatul Shaykh Shaqur Rehman. Now, Shaykh, let's start our segment with questions on WhatsApp. And the first question, Assalamu alaikum. Who should inherit upon the death of a woman? How should the will be written if the husband has already died?
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah. Now, the laws of inheritance are very clear in Islam. You'll find many of them in Surah An-Nisa in the beginning, or some at the end as well. Now, for any deceased person, whether a woman or man, whether husband, wife, child, father, mother, whatever it is, those who remain, and depending on who remains, that will dictate who actually inherits. So let's say she has children. Her children remain. You have boys and girls. They'll take everything and we split between them. Okay, and the shares have been specified in the Sharia, and that is something fixed in Islam. Okay, if maybe her husband has passed away, but her father is still alive and her mother is still alive, so they also have a share that has been stipulated by Allah. So really, in these situations, to get a ruling on who inherits and how much they inherit, you have to know the details of who remains after the deceased, and that will dictate. So the person needs to go to a qualified Islamic scholar or a recognized Islamic institution and ask them for the ruling for that, and then they can get clarification after everyone who is remaining related to the deceased is known.
Thank you very much for that. And if you need any legal advice with regards to how to create Islamic wills, then please do also consult a professional legal expert. Moving on to the next question, Sheikh. It's a common question, but in brief, if you can kindly answer. What do we do in order to get our dua answered by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala?
Okay. This is a common question, and it's something that we are going to focus on as we approach Ramadan. Now, to get our dua answered, first and foremost, we need to live in a halal way and a good way. That's the first thing, because we know the famous hadith of the Prophet where he describes that man who is disheveled, traveled a long way, and he raises his hands up, and then the Prophet says, وَمَطْعَمُهُ حَرَامٌ, what he nourished himself with is haram. مَلْبَسُهُ حَرَامٌ, what he's wearing is haram. Everything about him is haram living. All of that prevents Allah from responding to our du'as and answering our du'as. Now, after that, if we can maintain righteousness and do righteous deeds and more righteous deeds, so we get closer and closer to Allah, then we are more likely to have our du'as answered. Then actual etiquettes of dua itself, these also help. We always remind each other of praising Allah before we make dua, praising the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, sending salah and salam upon the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, facing the qibla, raising our hands. Okay, these are certain things, using certain words which the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam has prescribed. Okay, all of these are good. But you know the thing that we need to focus on in dua? It is our hearts should be begging Allah and connected with Allah, and there should be synchronization between our hearts and our tongues. So when the heart is alive and you really profess your dire need to Allah and you show Allah the humbleness, that is true devotion to Allah, and that is what Allah wants. And when you do that, you are more likely to be answered. It doesn't matter as much when it comes to the words you use and the language you use. Rather, that is the essence of dua. That is the essence of ibadah. That is the essence that Allah wants to extract from us, and that makes Him pleased and happy with us. And the happier He is with us, the more likely He is to respond. And Allah knows best.
Thank you very much for that. Now, moving on swiftly to our next question. We booked our Umrah last year before Ramadan, which has been cancelled due to pandemic. Travel agent refunded the money. They have refunded it after 1 year. Is zakah applicable on this money?
Okay, so you have received money which you didn't have. Okay. Now, some scholars will say that because that money was always coming back to you, it was like you had given it, it was being held, and they had to return it to you. You knew it was coming back. It was zakatable from all of that time. Okay. Others would say no, it's now you've got it back. It wasn't with you. You've got it back now. Therefore, zakah is due after you've had it for a year. At the end of the day, the way we work out zakah, and this is what you should do. Whatever money you have on the day you pay zakah, you take it all into consideration and you do your 2.5% and you pay it all. Otherwise, you're not going to track your money from year to year, etc. It's not going to happen. The practical way you do your zakah is whatever wealth you have on your zakah day. And many people have the 27th of Ramadan or somewhere in the last 10 nights of Ramadan as their zakah day. Whatever money you have, forget about how long you've had it, whatever money you have, that at that date, at that time, count it as zakatable and give your zakah. Okay?
Okay, now just to clarify, when you mentioned zakah day, is it the zakah anniversary date are you talking about from the day?
Yeah, because all of us, the way we work our zakah is that we have a particular date on which we give our zakah.
Okay.
So that date we're talking about. It could be you've decided from way back there when you first started paying zakah, it's going to be the 21st of Ramadan or the 27th of Ramadan or the 29th of Ramadan. Whatever it is, okay, that's the date you pay it.
Fair enough. And if someone pays zakah in excess, will that still be considered as zakah or will that be considered as sadaqah?
Okay, if you pay more zakah, as zakah, it's more being given to the poor, more in the way of Allah, that's only good. There's nothing wrong with that, that's only good. So, and zakah, if you give it as zakah, normally people give it to the charities who then distribute it to the poor. If you give it as zakah, they will only give it to those categories.
Now, there's a question there. A lot of us have got interest money saved due to whatever reason. It could be from the saving account that has generated interest. Now, they don't want to touch those. When calculating the zakah, how do they work out?
The interest money that we have to just give away.
Without the intention?
We give it away. The intention is to get rid of any sin involved.
Okay.
So it's takhallus and it's getting rid of. It's not sadaqah we're giving like that. We're just trying to get rid of the interest, because we don't want it on our next Yawm al-Qiyamah. It's riba. Okay, so this is something that Allah hates. Now, the charities use it for any things that benefit the community, like sewerage and these
making toilets.
Whatever it is.
Yeah.
They use it in the way. They know how to get rid of it and use it. So that is what we're doing. We're getting rid of, you could say, dirty money.
Okay.
Yeah, dirty money that has come our way, we're getting rid of it. Okay, so we're purifying our money by getting rid of it. It's not something reward for, or something where we want reward like that. Our reward is getting rid of anything that taints our wealth.
Thank you very much for that. And also another thing, a lot of people, they try to give to their own extended family members abroad this interest money. What would you best advise, to do that or give it to a charity declaring without having any intention of earning reward?
This interest money is not something that you should give to another Muslim like that.
Okay.
And your relatives and things like that.
Okay.
No, give them sadaqah. Give them if they are poor and in need and they fulfill the categories of those who deserve zakah, give them zakah. But interest money, no. This is get rid of it for amenities that the community can benefit from, which are simple things, and it is getting rid of dirty money. So don't give it to people to feed, because you wouldn't feed yourself from dirty money, would you?
Thank you very much. And also I'd like to remind our viewers, Ramadan is approaching, and in fact on Thursday and Friday we've got live charity appeals. So if you've got zakah money, if this is the zakah anniversary date for you, then please feel free to get in touch with the respective charity organizations that come to our Eman channel, or even in the month of Ramadan, and make sure you declare if it's an interest-based money, and if they have got a project that they will utilize those interest-based money, then please make sure you utilize those opportunities as well. Now, Sheikh, moving on to the next question. Did Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam complete Quran in 3 days or less than 3 days? If yes, why our pious predecessor used to finish 30 or more Qurans in the holy month of Ramadan?
Okay, so this is a common question. Yani how many days should we recite the whole Quran in, or what's the least amount of days? Now, the scholars talk about this, and the general rule is exactly that. The general rule is in no less than 3 days. That's the general rule. And then the scholars explain Ramadan is a special time, so Ramadan is an exception. Okay, Ramadan is an exception to the general rule. So yes, that is the general rule in normal times, but Ramadan is an exception. That's why we find our scholars from Abu Hanifa and Ash-Shafi'i and the rest of the Imams of this Ummah, they would recite the Quran numerous times during Ramadan, increasing upon reciting it in less than 3 days. So it is from our Imams of this Ummah, because they understood the deen the best. So it is allowable to recite in less than 3 days in Ramadan. So some would recite it once in the day and once at night. So they would accumulate 60 Qur'ans in the month of Ramadan.
Thank you very much for that. And in fact, Ramadan is approaching, and therefore I understand the questions are all surrounding the holy month of Ramadan, whether he'd be reading the Quran or even paying a zakah. Now, if you have any similar questions or anything that you'd like to ask and get an Islamic guidance according to the Quran and Sunnah, then this is your show. Please pick up the phone and dial 0203-515-0757. Alternatively, you can continue sending us your WhatsApp question on 0791-684-1483, and all the necessary contact details are displayed at the bottom of your screen. Moving on swiftly to the next question. Again, it says zakah. If one overpaid zakah due to a miscalculation last year, can one minus that amount from the next zakah due?
No.
Okay, simple answer.
Simple answer.
Okay.
Give more, get more reward. Don't think as you lost out.
SubhanAllah.
Just think you gained extra. Allah gave you more reward. Your soul wanted to prevent you from the reward, but Allah forced you to take more reward.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you very much for that. Let's move on now to our first caller. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam, rahmatullah barakatuh.
Thank you very much, my dear sister, for calling in. What's your question?
I have two questions. One is regarding Quran, and the other one regarding some interest money. The first question is, if I don't want to read whole Quran before Ramadan, which I'm already reading it, I'm already on the 21st para. But if I don't want to read the whole Quran during Ramadan, which I don't think I will be able to finish, which are the surahs we must read? Which is the most important surah we should read, and that will give us a benefit of whole Quran? One question. Second is, if I've got interest and if I want to pay somebody who's poor, but not very poor, they have, they're getting salary in Pakistan, which is not really enough to manage the house, and they have.
Okay, stay on the line, my dear sister. I just wanted to clarify with the Sheikh. Is the question clear to you, both of them?
Only the first one. The second one I couldn't hear clearly.
Okay, my dear sister, if you can slightly repeat the second question again, and if I can slightly increase the volume, if I can request. Yes, my dear sister, go on.
Okay. Second question is that if I want to help somebody with my interest money, they're not very poor, but the salary of the person is not getting enough to manage 7 people. Can I give it to them for anything?
Okay, I think I've understood the question. It's clear. Thank you very much, my dear sister, for asking those 2 very important and relevant questions. Sheikh, if you can answer both.
Okay, in terms of the Quran, the sister was asking concerning reading the Quran. She's reading, and she mentioned she's in a particular place in the Quran at the moment, and she doesn't think that she's going to be able to read the whole Quran in Ramadan.
Correct.
The first thing I would say to her is start or just continue where you're reading. When Ramadan comes, push yourself and make the intention, you know what, I want to finish the Quran in Ramadan. And push yourself. Set up a target. Make it in your, put it in your mind, I have to complete my juz, one whole juz of the Quran every single day. When you put it in your head, you will push yourself, and because it's Ramadan, Allah will give you tawfiq. Okay, so don't say, I will not be able to. Okay, don't say this. I will be able to, and strive. And even if you don't manage to read it all, at least you would read more than if you didn't put that in your mind that I'm going to read a juz a day. Okay, so that's the first thing. Now, in terms of, she wants to know, how do you get the reward for reading the whole Quran? Now, everyone knows the hadith where Surah Al-Ikhlas, Qul Hu Allahu Ahad, is worth 1/3 of the Quran. But it doesn't mean that you're going to get the exact reward for reading the whole Quran by just reciting Surah Al-Ikhlas 3 times. It doesn't mean that. Okay, it's not exactly the same, because you need, like you need all of your different vitamins, which come from all of your different fruits and vegetables, etc. Likewise, with the Quran, you need every single part of it, every single word and letter. You need it. We need it. So you're not going to get that if you just confine yourself to one particular surah or a few surahs. Yes, recite Surah Al-Ikhlas 3 times in a day, or 3 times after Fajr and after Maghrib and during the day, and 10 times as well. Okay, yes, do that. But don't think it will make up for reading the whole Quran.
Okay.
The second question was interest money.
Correct.
Do not use interest money to feed someone and to help someone like this. It's not what
allowed.
Interest money is for.
Okay.
Interest money, we use it for communal things like having the streets cleaned, having sewage dealt with, things like that, because we're getting rid of it. If you want to help someone in need, help them from your sadaqah, from your wealth, which is not interest money, which is all halal money. Give them from your sadaqah, give them from your zakah, if they fall in the categories of zakah, and keep it to that.
Thank you very much for that. And if any one of you would like to ask similar sort of questions or anything in general, then please pick up the phone and dial 0203 5150757. Now, I'd like to take on from the zakat question, another question that comes to my mind. Often we see we've got family tensions. I'm talking about family abroad. Maybe here, but in general abroad, we've got our own first cousins, our own direct blood relatives out there abroad in our country of origin, and we yet neglect them or ignore them because of whatever family issues or challenges that we face, whatever has happened in the past or current, whatever it is, and we deprive our own relatives of giving our own zakat. Rather, we're happy to give to anyone outside, but the people who are more in need, we deprive them just because there is some enmity or there's some sort of family clashes. What's your advice?
Okay, clearly, when the Prophet ﷺ, he said, أَلَا أُخْبِرُكُمْ أَلَا أَفْضَلْ مِنْ دَرَجَةِ الصَّلَاةِ وَالصِّيَامِ وَالصَّدَقَةِ, when he said, shall I not tell you about that which is greater in status, greater in rank than optional salah and optional fasting and optional sadaqah? And then he mentioned that this is salatu dhatil bayn. This is reconciling between our kith and kin, the relatives that we have. This is the greatest of deeds. The Prophet ﷺ described it as the greatest of deeds to be done. So this is so important. And then when you link sadaqah to it, the Prophet ﷺ told us that sadaqah to a relative in need is 2 good deeds rather than 1. It is sadaqah and it is silatul rahim, which is tying the bonds of kinship. So instead of 1 good deed, you get 2. Right, so these 2 things need to be done. Before we go into Ramadan, let's reconcile our differences that we have in our families, in our communities, so that we enter Ramadan in a pure state so we can maximize our rewards. And then we won't have this issue of not giving our needy relatives. And then we will maximize our rewards.
Thank you very much for that. And another question, is this not a perfect time for us because we've got interest-based questions and caller has discussed about interest money. Now, this Ramadan or before the Ramadan comes, like in a professional world, before the new tax year begins or the financial begins, we plan ourselves to ensure that we become successful in the future years or the next coming years. Similarly, can we not plan if we are involved with any sort of haram activities, for example, business that involve alcohol or interest or whatever it is, or anything that we are associating ourselves that maybe are in contradiction with the Sharia or the Quran Hadith, what would your advice be in terms of why cannot we start or plan from this Ramadan or before the Ramadan starts?
Okay. Very important for us, whether Ramadan is coming or not coming, it doesn't secure us from death. And at the end of the day, we could meet Allah, we could have to stand in front of Allah at any moment in our lives. So we need to take that, especially now, you've seen so many deaths in the pandemic. It could happen at any moment to any single one of us. So that's what should actually motivate us. And then this is an opportunity. You're entering the blessed month of Ramadan. You really want to prevent yourself because of the haram that you're doing from the forgiveness of Allah. Because, if you carry on with haram and then you do a few good deeds here and there, what are we saying to Allah? I'm still going to disobey you, but I want some good out of you as well. That's not submission to Allah. Islam is submission to Allah wholeheartedly. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu dukhulu fis silmi kafa. Allah wants us to completely submit to Allah. It's not pick and choose. This is not Islam. So let us make that intent right now and submit to Allah fully as He deserves. Okay? And Ramadan is the best time for change anyway, and it becomes easier. So let's finish all our haram so that Allah can accept us, inshallah.
Thank you very much. Now moving on swiftly to our next caller. Let's see who's on the line. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, brother.
Thank you very much for calling in, my dear brother. What's your question?
My question is basically, it's about inheritance. If my father buys some assets, for example, land, say, for example, 3 pieces of land in 3 different places, and he names his kids, boys, he names, say, 2 of his boys' name on one plot and leave out the daughters, and name the daughters and the sons on another plot. So would the daughters be entitled to the plot that their name hasn't been mentioned once father passes away?
Okay, so what are you exactly trying to find out?
I want to find out the plot that the sisters, the sisters' name are not indicated. Are they entitled to the share?
Okay, wait, can you kindly hold on, please? Is the question clear to you, or do you have any supplementary question?
When you say he named them in ownership, was that during his life?
Yeah, during his life. Yeah, but he never mentioned anything about, whether or not
So he bought the land and he bought it and put it in the names while he was alive. He said, this is the boys. And another plot, he said, this is the girls and a boy. During his lifetime, he gave it to them. Is that what you're saying?
He gave it to them. Or say he just bought the plot and later on the land has been transferred by brothers to only brother's name and not the sister's name. And but there was no while he was alive and that. Yeah.
Okay, it's clear. But one more question I have: is this property or asset? Is it in the UK or abroad?
It's abroad.
If abroad. Okay. It will help Sheikh answer accordingly, inshallah. Thank you very much for that, Sheikh.
Okay. In terms of these types of issues, firstly, if a parent gifts to his children, it doesn't mean he can gift as he pleases like this. He has to still maintain justice.
Yeah, also another thing I have to make a disclaimer there. We are hearing from one side of the person because we don't know what's the other side.
We'll get into that as well. Now, we can't give rulings concerning specific cases like this without hearing from all sides. Yeah, okay. That's clear. But right from the first instant is that, as parents, when we give gifts to our children, for their lives and their futures, etc., we need to be just in giving. Justice doesn't always mean exactly the same, covering their needs and the rest of it. And then we need to remember that we're going to be accountable in front of Allah. Now, in terms of when there's a dispute about what's happened and the parent has passed away, etc., then no one should comment on those types of issues until all parties have agreed to sit in front of an Islamic judge, who is going to listen to all sides, establish the facts, and then be able to give a ruling about what's happened. Okay, so that, abroad we have our Sharia judges back home. You can go to them and present everything on all the documentation that needs to be done to come up with a ruling. But right at the beginning, how are we going to give gifts to our children? That's the beginning of it. And then to make it clear in the will that everything should be distributed of the wealth Islamically and have that written down, that prevents this animosity that can occur at the end.
Thank you very much. And my dear brother, as Sheikh has mentioned, this is a general guidance. This can't be a specific guidance toward the issues or case that you have raised. So please consult, as Sheikh has mentioned, on a one-to-one basis, a qualified scholar. And since you have mentioned the properties are based abroad, it's best, as Sheikh has mentioned, to consult a scholar abroad so that you can have a proper understanding. Now, Sheikh, final thoughts regarding this particular question that has come through. If someone makes a will, for an instance, that is not Sharia compliant or in contradiction with the Sharia, what would you say to the individual?
Okay, so this could occur in different ways. So it could be that someone stipulates in an Islamic will that which contradicts what Allah has stipulated. Okay, in preventing someone who deserves inheritance or giving someone more than they are allowed to receive. So when that happens, that part of the will has to be ignored because it's going against what Allah has stipulated. So say, a simple example, at the end of the life, a husband didn't like his wife and he wanted to prevent her from inheriting. Okay, and he wrote things down in his will to state that. Okay, we're talking about where we can implement the Shari or the Sharia view on this issue. That bit would be ignored, okay, because she can't be prevented from inheriting if he died while she was still his wife. She has that right to inherit. So something like that would not be upheld.
Thank you very much for that. My dear viewers, that's all what we have time for. I'd like to thank our guest for giving us his valuable time. Inshallah, we look forward to doing more shows with you in the future.
Jazakallah khair. May Allah bless you all.
Ameen ya Rabbal Alameen. And inshallah, this is where we come to an end. And inshallah, please do watch tomorrow. Ask Eman Urdu. If you have got any question that you'd like to ask in Urdu language, then the show is for you. And inshallah, between 8 to 9 p.m., whether it be through phone calls or you can also drop us a text on WhatsApp. This program, you can find us on our social media platforms. And please don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Facebook and Instagram page, and follow our Twitter handle. And also keep an eye on our website, Eman Channel TV. My thanks and gratitude to all the viewers who have sent us text through our WhatsApp and to both the callers who have called and asked such an important question. Until next time, Subhanakallahumma bihamdik, nashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Wassalamu alaikum.